Hey mathematicians, get ready, as today we're going to work on naming points using coordinate pairs, and then we're going to use those coordinate pairs to plot points. Let's get into it with our I will statements for today.
Remember, your I will statements are your goals for this lesson. They are what we are trying to work on and learn more about throughout our time together today. As we continue on in our lesson, make sure you have your mind focused on these three things and showing them to your teacher. I will read the I will statement first, and then we will read it again a second time together. Make sure you're reading it nice and loudly so I can hear you, but no shouting necessary.
Listen as I read the first one. I will identify ordered pairs. Read that one with me. I will identify ordered pairs. Nice job. Let's look at the second one. I will plot points on a coordinate plane. Read that one with me. I will plot points on a coordinate plane. And our last one. I will read a coordinate plane graph. Read that one with me. I will read a coordinate plane graph. Good job, mathematicians. Let's get into our warm-up activity for today. For our warm-up activity today, we're going to review some of the names of specific parts of a coordinate grid. For this activity, I'm going to point to a specific part of the picture on the screen. Your job is going to be to name that specific part. I may give you a particular question that gives you a clue as to what the vocabulary word might be. Grab your whiteboards and your markers now, as after I ask you the question, you'll pause the video and have 30 seconds to write down your answers. Let's start with our first one. On the screen, you'll see an arrow pointing at a specific line. This horizontal line has a specific name. On your right whiteboards, name the axis that is this line. Pause the video now and do that. You should have written x-axis on your whiteboards. If you did that, give yourself a high five. If your neighbor has it on their board, give them a high five. Now let's look at the vertical line. Name this axis. Pause the video and write it on your whiteboards now. This axis is called the y-axis. If you had that on your whiteboards, give yourself a pat on the back. Now, we are going to look where the x and y axis intersect. At what angle do these lines measure? The two axes meet at a 90-degree angle. Nice job, mathematicians. Now, don't write this one on your whiteboards, but listen up closely. I'm going to give you a countdown, and I want to see if you can help me identify what type of lines these are. Since these lines intersect at a right angle, these are called what type of line? On the count of three, call out your answer. 1, 2, 3. These are called perpendicular lines. Remember, whenever two lines intersect and they meet at a right angle, those are called perpendicular lines. Now, let's look specifically at our coordinate plane. In that middle point at that 90-degree angle, we're going to name that coordinate pair. Do you know what that coordinate pair is called? Now, there's two things we could have wrote for that coordinate pair. You could have given me the numbers it is on, which is 0, 0. But you could have also told me what we call that point on this specific type of graph, and that is an origin. If you had either of those written on your whiteboard, nice job, mathematicians. That was a little review of specific names of the coordinate grid that we're going to want to remember. We're going to practice with plotting on a coordinate grid together today before you guys get a chance to work as a class. Take a quick stretch break and get ready for our full group new material activity when you come back. For our activity today, you will need your grid piece of paper from your teacher. It's your problem set. You'll need a ruler and a pencil for this activity. We are going to use our ruler to help us follow some of the steps in the beginning, and I'll model them so we don't get confused. First, grab your ruler and find points A and B. Put your fingers on points A and B. Points A and B are at the bottom of our page. Let's draw a line using our ruler from points A to B. We're going to draw a line that goes through them. Do that with me now. So we're going to draw a line that goes through these two guys. And this line is going to be our x-axis. So on the side, we're going to label x-axis. Pause and do this on your papers now. Now that we have finished that task, let's go to the top of our paper where they're all listed out and check off A. Now let's go to B. Read B with me. Construct a perpendicular y-axis that passes through points C and F. We talked about perpendicular in our warm-up. I know that a perpendicular line is two lines that cross at a 90-degree angle. So we're going to need a straight line that goes through points C and F, but also intersects our line at the bottom. Let's take our ruler, points C and F are on the side of our page here, line it up and draw a line that goes through C and goes through F. Once you have your line, we're going to label it at the top, y-axis. Do that on your papers now. Now that we have that completed, let's check off B. We now have our x and y-axis on our grids. Let's look at C. Read C with me. Label the origin as 0. Remember, the origin is where the x and y axis intersect. So where they meet is down here. We're going to label this with a 0 at the bottom. Everybody label this point with 0. You can write it right next to it or underneath the point. I'm going to write it next to it on my paper. Wrote it right on the line. Now we are going to label the whole numbers on our x-axis. Each of our squares represents 1/4, which means we need to count 4 squares before we label one whole. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll label this 1. Let's continue. Count 4 more squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll label that one 2. Keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4. Label this one 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Label this one 4. And 1, 2, 3. We don't quite make it to the end there, so we'll stop at 4 holes on the bottom. We're going to do the same for our y-axis now. We're going to count up by 4s, and we're going to label every 4th block with a whole number. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Label this one 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll label this one 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll label this one 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Label this one 4. And then it goes not all the way 4 up, so we can stop at that one again. Now that we have our whole numbers all labeled on our grids, if you need more time, you can pause the video and do that now. Let's take time to identify where some of the points on our grid are. If we look at the x-coordinate, specifically for the points of A. So that means if we looked at the x-axis, what point is A on? Point is 1, 2, 3 jumps away, or point A is 3/4 as its x-coordinate. We could keep going to identify the other coordinates on our x-axis, and we can do the same on our y-axis. If I asked for the y-coordinate of F, you would say 2. We moved over 0 and went up 2. Nice job, mathematicians. You are going to continue to use your coordinate graph to help plot specific points and analyze where each of the coordinate pairs lands. Use your ruler to help line up specific points if they are higher up on your grid so that you are able to see what specific points they are on the X and Y axis. Good luck, mathematicians, and I'll see you guys soon.